Facebook.
You're pretty busy.
Yeah. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. I have a card. Oh, great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much. I'll try to speak directly into the mic. I'm going to take my mask off for this part of it. My name is Zach Terwilliger. I'm the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Joining me today out here to make this announcement is Acting Assistant Director of the FBI's Washington Field Office, James Dawson, who you'll be hearing from in a minute. We have what I believe is a significant law enforcement announcement to make today. Starting in the wee hours of this morning, the brave men and women in law enforcement effectuated the arrest of 10 MS-13 members or close associates thereof who stand charged with the sex trafficking of a minor under the age of 14. One of the alleged gang members, Carlos Villatoro, an 11th defendant, is charged with violent crimes in aid of racketeering. Let me make clear, these individuals are charged with heinous offenses, but just like any other defendant, they're entitled to and deserve the presumption of innocence until they're proven otherwise. Combating human trafficking has been a priority for this office for over a decade. Specifically targeting gang-controlled sex trafficking is something that I dedicated almost 3 years of my life to as an assistant United States attorney in this district and in the courtrooms just behind us. In that vein, I want to speak with you today to ensure that our community has continued awareness about what is happening within our district and to make clear that we will not stop investigating or combating this scourge of modern-day slavery. Unfortunately, the work I started almost a decade ago with the first prosecution of an MS-13 member for sex trafficking continues today. Here are some of the heart-wrenching facts as alleged in the criminal complaint. And again, I want to be clear, these are allegations at this point. One of the victims in this case was 13 years old. Let me repeat that, 13 years old, when she was sexually trafficked to paying pedophiles, sexually assaulted repeatedly by gang members, and beaten with a metal bat on multiple occasions. Further, due to the comprehensive nature of this investigation, we have communications between gang members, but how they were going to treat this 13-year-old victim. This text message dialogue can be found in the unsealed complaint. And I quote, "Tell him to come. I'm dying to hit that daughter of a bitch with a baseball bat. A homeboy in El Salvador wants to watch what happens." In another exchange about the minor victim, "Who is getting the joint? Coca, the beer. I will get the little whores." As alleged in this criminal complaint, this 13-year-old was plied with marijuana, alcohol, and even cocaine. She was trafficked in apartments, as well as wooded areas behind apartment complexes. This took place in Virginia and Maryland. There's a few more points I want to make about our anti-MS-13 work here in EDVA, but before I do that, I want to offer my deepest thanks to the Fairfax County Police Department, who've been a partner with us against fighting MS-13 for years, along with the Prince William County Police Department, our prosecutors and team here at the Eastern District of Virginia. And a special note of thanks to the FBI for their incredible work and partnership. And I'd ask that Acting Assistant Director in charge of the Washington Field Office, Jim Dawson, come forward. Assistant Director Dawson.
Thank you, Zach. As Zach said, my name is Jim Dawson, and I'm the Acting Assistant Director in charge of the Washington Field Office of the FBI. I'm proud to be here today in concert with Zach to be able to explain to the American people what exactly we do with our time and how we enforce the law. The 11 individuals who are identified in the indictments have engaged in reprehensible, entirely reprehensible activity, as alleged in the indictments. They took advantage of children. They extorted them for profit. And in this case, they traded minors for drugs and for cash. Along with the United States Attorney's Office here in the Eastern District of Virginia and with surrounding offices, we will continue to do everything that we can to combat violence and to combat the activities of MS-13. MS-13 in Northern Virginia is known to be one of the area's most violent and deadly gangs. They systemically use violence, and they initiate and intimidate members through terrible acts that none of us should be willing to accept. They do this while targeting the immigrant community. Our goal is to eradicate MS-13 from this area and from the United States. For years, we've been focused upon dismantling gangs and their leadership, putting murderers and criminals behind bars. And today's indictments certainly prove that. Crimes against children will always be a priority to the FBI and to our partners because we're charged with protecting all of America's people, specifically those who are incapable of protecting themselves. And in our work, there is no investigation which is more meaningful than bringing to justice those who harm children. We always think of our victims first, but especially in crimes against children. I'm proud of our relentless work and everything that was done by our agents and analysts and for their dedication and for their time and work in this case. I'd like to thank our many partners who participated in this event, specifically those in Northern Virginia and in Maryland. We're certainly proud of the work that is undertaken by our Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force, which is out of the Washington Field Office of the FBI. We're also proud of the work which is undertaken by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. We're grateful for the investigative and tactical assistance which was afforded by the Department of Homeland Security, by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and by enforcement and removal operations. We're also thankful for the work which was performed by the FBI Baltimore, Norfolk, and Richmond field offices, along with the Prince George's County Police and the Montgomery County Police. We would not be announcing these arrests today if it were not for a cooperative effort and a collaborative effort undertaken by many law enforcement agencies who are dedicated to protecting the American people. With that, thank you. Zach?
Thank you very much, Jim. Just a couple more points I want to make, then I promise we'll open it up for questions. Yesterday, as many of you reported on, the Attorney General announced that $35 million in grant money will be going to states to assist in housing for human trafficking victims. I've been around the human trafficking world for over a decade as a prosecutor and adjunct professor, and now I'm proud to serve on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Law Enforcement Advisory Council. You ask any one of those entities and people around trafficking, what they will tell you is we don't have housing. Housing is what we need. So this is not just another press release about federal dollars going out. This is huge. This is huge that we're finally going to have housing money appropriated, pushed out to the communities for victims. I'm pleased to tell you that the Commonwealth of Virginia received $868,000 in grant money. Second, you also heard an announcement back on July 15th about the Eastern District's role in a combined effort with the FBI and others in Project Vulcan, which is a whole-of-government approach to combating MS-13. You also heard on that day that EDVA, our district, charged the first MS-13 gang member with a terrorism offense. I just want to make that clear today. Today we're here obviously to talk about human trafficking. A couple weeks ago it was combating MS-13 as a terrorist organization. We will not stop until we get MS-13 contained and eradicated. Finally, something you're hardly ever going to hear individuals talk about, but it's a fact and a critical one, is the group that suffers most at the hands of MS-13 is our immigrant community. MS-13 preys upon our immigrants by trafficking their daughters, beating and killing their sons for any sign of disrespect against the gang, and by extorting hard-working immigrant families in this country, by threatening them with violence here in the United States as well as Central America. Fighting MS-13 is not anti-immigrant. Fighting MS-13 is about as pro-immigrant as it gets. Because it's that group, hard-working immigrants seeking a better life and safety, that suffer most at the hands of this vicious and vile group. Thanks very much for being here, and happy to take some questions along with Jim. Yes, sir.
Because it does come up sometimes in these MS-13 cases, can you say, do you know the immigration status of these 11 defendants?
Thanks a lot for asking, Matt. So at this point, pursuant to our local rules, I've got to stick with what's in the four corners of the complaint. However, it's my understanding that that information will come out in the next court proceeding, which will be a detention hearing and preliminary hearing. I know the answer to that, but I'm not at liberty to say right now, but that information will be forthcoming. Good question. Yes, sir.
You said one of the victims. How many victims were there in this case?
Again, and at this point, since we're at the charging stage and everyone's presumed innocent, I'm going to stick to the four corners of the complaint that only references the one victim. Other questions? Rachel.
The last time, recently when you had a case charge, you talked about your disappointment with some local community leaders not standing up to MS-13 basically. But here you're working with, I think, Prince William Police, Fairfax County Police. So who exactly are you talking about, and what do you think is not being done?
Sure. What Rachel's referring to is last time we had a large MS-13 case, I said people need to start acknowledging that this is a problem where some of this conduct, not this case, but MS-13 conduct takes place is just 3 miles from here. What I would say is when I've gone out in the community and spoken to some of our elected leaders and others is, once again, combating MS-13 is not anti-immigrant. It's pro-immigrant. We're going after the people who are preying upon our immigrant communities. So I would, if I were in the media, start asking questions of our local elected leaders and say, does Alexandria have a gang problem, and what are you doing about it? What is your plan in Fairfax to continue fighting MS-13 and other gangs? And see the answer you get. Certain police departments have folded their gang units because of political pressure. We work very, very well with law enforcement. Law enforcement is key to this operation. But you know who's also key to this is our elected leaders and calling out what's actually going on. And the community is key. Some of the people that I've met with over the last 10 years as a prosecutor and over the last 2 as U.S. attorney, those in minority communities, they're the ones who are asking us to be there, asking us to come in. Because if we're not there, it's the vicious criminals that prey upon them. So I think everybody should get a chance to answer for themselves. But I think if you go ask them the tough questions, what are you doing about MS-13? What are you doing about gangs that are preying upon these communities? What is the status of your gang task force or your gang unit? You may be surprised by some of the answers that you get. Any other questions?
Do you have a feel generally for whether MS-13 is on the rise, on the decline?
Yeah, Matt, good question. What we're seeing from MS-13 is increased coordination, increased sophistication. They are a gang that's always been ruthlessly violent. That's born out of the fact that many original MS-13 gang members grew up in El Salvador during the Civil War, where violence was commonplace. I've heard stories from old gang members talking about walking to school with bodies stacked next to them. For so many years, the machete was their weapon of choice because it's vicious and violent. One of the things that separates MS-13 from so many other gangs is their penchant for violence. A lot of people engage in violence to control drug territory, to control certain neighborhoods. MS-13 is violent for violence sake. What we're seeing now, as was revealed in our charges against Armando Melgar Diaz, the one we charged with terrorism, is increased coordination between El Salvador, gang members in El Salvador, and the United States. You've got drugs and money that are flowing up from El Salvador, and money and guns flowing south. And what you've seen under this Department of Justice and this administration, frankly, is a stepped up effort to engage with El Salvador, the Salvadorian government, and law enforcement down there. And now we've got a whole of government approach going after MS-13, whether it's sex trafficking, extortion, immigration violations, violent crimes and aggravated racketeering, RICO, all the way up to terrorism.
For people at home who hear about MS-13 but don't know the intricacies of the group, help me put it into context. How common are the actions along the lines of what's described in this complaint here in Northern Virginia?
So MS-13 is more active in certain areas of the country. I don't want to get it over my skis and out to my lane. I've been fighting and prosecuting MS-13 for 10 years. I've written articles about it. I taught a class on human trafficking. So I feel like I've been to El Salvador 3 times. I feel like I can talk a little bit about it nationally, but let me just confine it to my area of responsibility now. MS-13 is prevalent in Northern Virginia. It's prevalent in Maryland, in this DMV area. You see a lot of MS-13 members moving and interacting between the district, Maryland, and Virginia. In Virginia, a lot of times it's a bedroom community where they work, and they do a lot of their violent criminal acts in Maryland. You can look at Long Island, New York. Suffolk and Nassau counties has been a hotbed of MS-13. You can look at places like Charlotte, North Carolina. You can look at California. MS-13 in some of those places I just mentioned is highly populated. One of the things that we were constantly having a problem with is we would have a successful MS-13 prosecution, eliminate entire clique, which is what their subgroups are called, and then very quickly additional MS-13 members would pour across a porous border and refill their ranks. Due to increased security along the border, we're not seeing that as much. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing so much more coordination via cell phone, text message, with what they call the Renflero, or the leadership in El Salvadorian prisons, because people aren't just pouring across our borders anymore, which gives me hope. I'm not trying to make this a political issue. What I'm saying is, if individuals can come and replenish the ranks of MS-13 easily by coming across the border from Central America, we literally are just playing whack-a-mole. Now that it's harder to get across the country, get across the border, and just immediately come to Northern Virginia, from the Texas area, for example, I think when we do these takedowns, we've got a real fighting chance to eliminate MS-13 and keep it that way. There was some famous cases that we've done, or infamous cases that we've done in the Eastern District of Virginia, where you had individuals who were deported, who were back in Northern Virginia in a matter of weeks. They could get up from Central America, hop on a railway boxcar, come up to the border, sneak across, get a van out of the Houston area, and be back in Northern Virginia. We're not seeing that right now, which is huge, and is extremely helpful to our law enforcement partners. Any other questions? Let me just say thank you all very much for being here. I know a lot of times news like this. It's not the palace intrigue that sometimes you get in Washington. Thank you for covering this news. Thank you for helping us get this message out here. I want to leave you with one of deterrence and awareness. This is still going on in our communities. We have to stay vigilant. This is happening, as you see in the complaint in Woodbridge, Virginia. This is happening around our community. Please stay aware. If you see something, say something, and I'd ask every member of our community to be on the lookout, report these things. We need your help, and there are folks out there in the community who know who's exactly doing this. So thank you, and I want to especially thank Acting Assistant Director Dawson for coming over here today. Thank you all very much. Stay safe.